Did you know that you can fall asleep in one century and wake up in another? That the world you know can fade away, replaced by the warm, gentle light of a morning almost 2,000 years past? There is no alarm clock here, no blue light from a screen. There is only the sun, a soft golden glow filtering from an opening in the ceiling above you, telling you that the day has begun in the year 7980. Before you get too comfortable, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel to encourage me to make more content like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights and let's begin tonight's journey. You are lying on a simple bed, a mattress stuffed with wool or straw, resting on a wooden frame. The room is small, dark, and has no windows. This is your cubiculum, your sleeping chamber, a private cocoon designed for rest, not for lingering. The air is cool and still. You swing your legs over the side, your bare feet meeting the smooth, cold surface of a terracotta tiled floor. It's a pleasant shock, a gentle anchor to this new reality. You push aside the heavy wool curtain that serves as your door and step out of the darkness. You are not in a hallway. You are immediately in the very heart of your home, the atrium. It is a breathtaking sight. The space is large and open, and high above, a square opening in the roof, the compluvium, frames a perfect piece of the pale blue Italian sky. Directly below it, set into the floor, is a shallow rectangular pool, the impluvium, its surface mirroring the sky above. This ingenious design is the home's primary source of light and water, a central feature of every respectable Roman domus. Rainwater is collected here and channeled into an underground cistern, providing for the household's needs. The first rays of sunlight slant down, illuminating millions of dust motes dancing in the air. A silent, swirling galaxy in the morning quiet. The light catches the vibrant colors of the frescoes painted on the high walls around you. Scenes of mythology, intricate patterns, and impossible architecture create an illusion of depth, making the space feel even grander. You walk towards the center of the room, your footsteps echoing softly. The air smells clean, a mixture of cool stone, damp earth from the small garden you can glimpse through a corridor, and the faint, sweet scent of oil from the lamps that were extinguished hours ago. In one corner, you notice a small, beautifully decorated shrine built into the wall. This is the Lairarium, the sacred space dedicated to your household gods, the Lares, who protect your family. A small garland of dried flowers and a tiny clay dish with a few grains of wheat sit as an offering, a quiet testament to yesterday's devotion. It's a powerful, constant reminder that faith and family are interwoven into the very walls of your home. You are not just in a house, you are in a protected, sacred space. Historians still debate whether the small, windowless rooms, like the one you just left, were solely for sleeping or served multiple purposes, such as private study or storage for the family's valuables. To you, it simply feels like a safe, dark place to dream. The rest of the city is beginning to stir now. You can hear the distant, muffled sounds of wooden cartwheels rumbling over stone and the faint call of a vendor selling his morning wares. It's a gentle symphony, the sound of a city waking up. A city utterly unaware that its time is measured in hours, not centuries. For now, it is just another beautiful morning in Pompeii. As you stand by the impluvium, taking in the morning calm, a quiet presence joins you. It is one of your household slaves, a young man from Gaul with steady hands and a respectful demeanor, carrying a basin of cool water and a strip of linen. Your morning ablutions are simple, a far cry from the elaborate bathing you will enjoy later in the day. You dip your hands into the water, the coolness a shock that sharpens your senses, and splash your face. There is no soap as you would know it, but sometimes a mixture of lye and ash is used. For your teeth, a frayed twig or a finger dipped in a fine powder made from ground bone or oyster shells does the job. Historians debate how much of a morning wash was common at home, given that most people would visit the public baths later in the day for a more thorough cleansing. For now, this is enough. It is a ritual to wash away the night, not a deep cleaning. The slave waits patiently, holding the linen towel for you to dry your face. He then leads you back toward your cubiculum, where your clothes for the day have been laid out. The first layer is simple, a knee-length sleeveless tunic made of linen. It is the basic garment of everyone in the Roman world, from the senator to the slave, differing only in material and quality. You pull it over your head, and it feels light and familiar against your skin. But what lies next is the true symbol of your identity. It is your toga, the formal attire of a Roman citizen. It is an enormous piece of cloth, a semicircle of heavy, off-white wool, nearly 18 feet long. This is not something you can just throw on. Getting dressed is a performance, a statement, and you require assistance. The slave, a specialist known as a vestoplicus, is an expert in the art of folding and draping this unwieldy garment. He takes the cloth and, with practiced efficiency, begins to pleat a section of it. You stand still, holding your arms out slightly, like a mannequin. He drapes one end over your left shoulder, letting it hang down to your feet. He then wraps the vast expanse of fabric across your back, under your right arm, and then throws the remaining length back over your left shoulder, creating a series of elegant, deliberate folds. The weight of it settles on you, a heavy, warm embrace. It is cumbersome, restrictive, and utterly impractical for any kind of manual labor, which is precisely the point. The toga is a walking billboard that declares your status. It says you are a citizen, a man of some standing, a person who does not work with his hands. This famous garment was, by law, reserved exclusively for male Roman citizens. Any non-citizen, slave, or even an exiled Roman court wearing one would face severe punishment. It was a uniform of privilege. You adjust the curved fold at the front, the sinus, which acts as a makeshift pocket for a few small coins or a wax tablet. You feel a sense of accomplishment, a bit like successfully tying a complicated tie for a formal event today. You are now properly dressed, ready to face the public eye and conduct your morning business. The soft leather sandals are tied onto your feet, and with a final glance at your reflection in a polished bronze mirror, you see not just a person, but a Roman citizen in his full, official splendor. Now properly attired in the uniform of a Roman citizen, you feel a gentle pang of hunger. The day's business cannot begin on an empty stomach. You turn from the atrium and follow a slave down a short, shaded corridor. You don't head for the grand dining room, the triclinium, where you will recline for your elaborate evening meal. Morning meals are far simpler, a functional necessity rather than a social occasion. The slave leads you to a small, unassuming room near the back of the domus, adjacent to the kitchen, the kalina. The air here is warmer and carries the comforting, universal scent of baking bread and the faint, lingering aroma of wood smoke from the hearth. The kitchen itself is a marvel of practicality, though perhaps not comfort. It is a small, dark space with a raised brick and mortar hearth against one wall where a low fire There are no chimneys in Pompeian kitchens, an obscure fact of architecture that meant these spaces were often perpetually filled with a thin layer of smoke that found its way out through high vents or doorways. It is a world without modern ventilation, a world where the smell of cooking clings to the very stones. Your breakfast, the enterculum, is laid out on a small wooden table. It is the Roman equivalent of a quick coffee and toast, designed for efficiency. Before you is a round loaf of coarse, dark bread, its top deeply scored into 8 wedges. This is Poni's quadratus, the signature bread of Pompeii, a dense, hearty loaf made from emmer wheat. The scoring made it easy to break off a piece without a knife. Beside the bread is a small terracotta dish holding a few wrinkled, dark olives glistening with oil, a chunk of hard, salty sheep's cheese, and a single dried fig. This is a common and widely known aspect of Roman dining, where bread served not just as food, but also as a plate and a utensil. You break off a wedge of the warm bread, its crust crunchy and its interior pleasingly chewy. You use it to scoop up a piece of the sharp, salty cheese, the combination of flavors awakening your palate. To drink, there is a simple earthenware cup filled with a deep purple liquid. It is wine, but it has been mixed with water, a practice as standard as putting milk in tea is for some cultures today. Drinking wine undiluted, especially in the morning, was considered a mark of a barbarian. The watered wine is refreshing and light, a gentle start to the day. You eat standing, or perhaps perched on a simple stool, the whole affair taking only a few minutes. It is a solitary, quiet moment of sustenance. Historians still debate the exact breakfast of the average Pompeian, as it would have varied enormously depending on wealth and occupation. A poorer laborer might only have a piece of dry bread dipped in water or wine, while a wealthier household like yours could afford cheese, fruit, or even honey. What is certain is that it was almost always a light meal, a simple fuel to start the day's activities. The main culinary event was always saved for the evening. As you finish your last bite of bread and take a final sip of wine, you feel ready. The sounds from outside the imposing front door of your house have grown from a murmur to a steady, rhythmic hum of activity. The city is fully awake now, and it is calling to you. The business of the day, the meetings in the forum, the endless social obligations of a Roman citizen await. Your business for the day is in the forum, the city's heart, and so you walk through the atrium, past the small shrine to your household gods, and approach the main entrance of your home. A slave pulls open the heavy wooden doors, and you step across the threshold, a space marked with a mosaic that might warn an intruder cave canem, beware of the dog. The transition is immediate and overwhelming. You leave behind the quiet, ordered world of your private domus, and are plunged directly into the vibrant chaos of a Pompeian street. The narrow lane is already teeming with life, a river of humanity flowing between the tall, imposing fronts of houses and shops. The air, which was cool and still inside, is now thick with 100 different smells. The earthy scent of livestock, the sharp tang of fish from a vendor's stall, the warm, yeasty perfume of the bakery you passed a moment ago, and the less pleasant but ever-present odor of refuse and waste in the gutters. You have stepped onto the Via dell'Abbondanza, the main artery of Pompeii, and its pulse is strong. The street itself is a work of rugged engineering. It is paved not with smooth asphalt, but with large, uneven polygonal blocks of dark grey basalt, fitted together like a jigsaw puzzle. The surface is worn smooth in places, and deeply grooved in others. Two deep, parallel ruts, worn into the stone over decades of use, mark the path of countless iron-rimmed cartwheels. These grooves are so pronounced they almost act as tracks, guiding wagons along their designated path. A constant, shallow stream of water, diverted from the city's aqueduct, flows through the street, a primitive but effective street cleaning system, washing away animal waste and garbage. This is a widely known feature of Pompeii's infrastructure, a testament to Roman practicality. To cross this miniature river of refuse without soiling the hem of your pristine toga, you must use the city's most ingenious feature, the pont. These are massive, high stepping stones placed at intervals across the street. They are tall enough to keep your feet dry and spaced just far enough apart to allow the axles of carts to pass between them. Navigating them requires a certain practiced rhythm, a delicate balancing act as you step from one to the other, like crossing a brook on slick stones. You watch a wealthy matron, her head veiled, step gracefully across, followed by a slave girl carrying a basket. A group of noisy schoolboys leaps across them with a careless energy you envy. This system is the ancient equivalent of a pedestrian crossing, a simple solution to a messy problem. The noise is a constant, energetic hum. You hear the rhythmic clatter of a donkey's hooves on the stone, the creak and groan of a heavy ox cart laden with amphorae of wine, and the shouts of vendors hawking their wares from the open fronts of their shops. A man selling hot sausages calls out his prices, his voice competing with a woman selling fresh figs. You nod to a fellow citizen, another man of business in his formal toga, and exchange a brief greeting as you pass. An obscure curiosity that modern archaeologists have discovered is that Pompeii likely had a system of one-way streets to manage this congestion. The pattern of wear on the curbs and stepping stones suggests that traffic flowed in a specific, regulated direction. On many of these narrow roads, a surprisingly modern approach to urban planning. Historians still debate the extent to which wheeled traffic was permitted in the city center during the busiest hours of the day. Some propose that streets like this one were effectively pedestrianized after a certain morning hour, with deliveries restricted to the very early morning. For now, however, you must sidestep the ancient equivalent of a delivery van, a large cart being stubbornly guided by a farmer. The life of the city is etched into these very stones, a story of commerce, community, and the simple, universal challenge of getting from one place to another. As you continue your careful walk along the Via dell'Abbondanza, your attention is drawn from the bustling street to the walls that line it. The buildings that line this busy road are not silent witnesses to the morning rush. They are active participants, a canvas of public thought, their plastered surfaces covered in a chaotic tapestry of words and images. This is the voice of Pompeii, a constant public conversation that everyone can see and contribute to. There are no blank walls here. Every available space seems to be covered in layers of writing, a historical record of daily life written by the people who lived it. Your eyes first catch on the most prominent messages, the programmata or electoral notices. Painted in large, clear letters, usually red or black, they are the political billboards of their day. You see one painted in bold red letters on the white plastered front of a tavern, proclaiming the virtues of a candidate for public office. It might read something like, "The fruit vendors, together with Helvius Vestulus, urge you to elect Marcus Holcanus Priscus as duumvir, a man of good standing." These are professionally done, often painted at night by a scripter who would sign his work, a testament to the organized and very public nature of Pompeian politics. This widespread political advertising is a well-known feature of the city's final years. But as your gaze drops lower, you find a more chaotic, and perhaps more honest, layer of communication. Here, scratched into the plaster with a nail or scrawled in charcoal by a passing citizen, is the city's real gossip. You see declarations of love, like successes. The weaver loves Iris, the innkeeper's slave, but she doesn't care for him. A small, public drama of unrequited affection. A little further along, a boast from a popular gladiator, Celadus, the Thracian, the heartthrob of the girls. You see crude caricatures, insults directed at rivals, and simple messages like "I was here." One particularly unusual and obscure curiosity is the sheer mundanity of some messages, things you would never think to write down, like a note that simply says, "On April 19th, I made bread." It is a public diary, a social media feed carved in stone and plaster. You pass a wall near a tavern where someone has scratched a list of prices for different qualities of wine, a practical bit of consumer information. Another scrawl offers a more philosophical, if cynical, piece of advice. A small problem gets bigger if you ignore it. Historians still debate what this explosion of public writing says about the literacy of the average Pompeian, questioning if it was the work of many individuals across social strata, or of a specialized few who could be hired to write for the illiterate. Whatever the case, the result is a city that wears its heart on its sleeve. The walls tell you who is popular, who is in love, who is angry, and what a cup of cheap wine costs. It is the city's bulletin board, its gossip column, and its comment section, all rendered in plain sight for all to see. You can't help but smile at one particular inscription, a glowing review that reads, "We have wet the bed, host. I confess we have done wrong. If you want to know why, there was no chamber pot." It's a moment of timeless, relatable humor, a direct connection to a person who lived and laughed on this very street 2 millennia ago. The voices of the walls follow you as you walk, a constant, colorful, and deeply human soundtrack to your morning journey. As you continue down the street, a new sound begins to cut through the general hum of the city. It is the constant musical sound of splashing water, a sound that grows louder with every step. You turn a corner and see its source, one of the many public fountains that are the lifeblood of Pompeii. It stands at a small crossroads, a sturdy, rectangular block of stone with a simple, sculpted spout, perhaps in the shape of a theatrical mask or a lion's head, from which a steady stream of clear, cool water gushes into a large, worn basin below. The stone is dark with moisture and has a fringe of bright green moss growing in its dampest corners. The overflow runs into a channel that joins the stream, cleaning the street, ensuring not a drop is wasted. This is not just a decorative feature. It is a vital public utility, a gathering place, and a symbol of Rome's engineering prowess. You pause for a moment to watch the scene. A slave girl, no older than 12, expertly balances a large clay amphora on her hip, waiting for it to fill. A baker's boy, his tunic dusted with flour, dunks his head under the cool stream with a gasp of pleasure, his face emerging, dripping and smiling. Two women, neighbors, exchange gossip while they wait their turn, their voices a low murmur beneath the sound of the water. The fountain is a social hub, a place for brief, unplanned encounters, the ancient equivalent of the office water cooler. The water itself is a gift from the mountains, a widely known fact of Roman civil engineering. It travels for miles along the massive Aqua Augusta, an aqueduct that served several towns in the region, carried by the subtle, unwavering power of gravity along a precisely engineered gradient. When it reached Pompeii, it flowed into the Castellum Aquae, a primary distribution tank located at the highest point of the city. From there, a complex network of lead pipes, the fistulae, channeled the water downhill throughout the city. This is where you see a particularly clever and somewhat obscure bit of Roman social design. The system was tiered. The pipes leading to the public fountains were set at the lowest level in the distribution tank, meaning they would be the last to run dry in a drought. The next level of pipes supplied the grand public baths, the thermae, the highest pipes. The first to lose water during a shortage were the ones that supplied the private homes of the wealthiest citizens. It was a remarkably civic-minded system, ensuring that the essential needs of the public were prioritized over the private luxuries of the elite, a practical measure to keep the populace content. Historians and scientists have long debated the health impacts of these lead pipes, questioning whether they contributed to widespread low-level lead poisoning or if the high mineral content of the water coated the inside of the pipes, rendering them relatively safe. As you watch the clear water splashing into the basin, it looks pure and life-giving. You cup your hands and take a drink. The water is cold and clean, a refreshing antidote to the growing heat of the morning. The sounds of the street seem to fade for a moment, replaced by the simple, timeless pleasure of a cool drink on a warm day. Your short break over, you continue your walk, the splashing of the fountain receding behind you, replaced now by a new sound. A deeper and more powerful roar of activity from the large, open space you are now approaching at the end of the street. The Forum awaits. The narrow street, with its high walls and close-packed humanity, suddenly opens up, and you step out into a breathtaking expanse of light and space. You have arrived at the Forum of Pompeii. The transition is like walking out of a dark tunnel into the brightest day. You instinctively raise a hand to shield your eyes from the brilliant sun reflecting off the vast paved plaza. The scale of the place is immense, a long, rectangular area stretching out before you, capable of holding the entire adult population of the city. The noise of the street is replaced by a different kind of sound, the amplified, echoing murmur of thousands of conversations, the shuffling of countless sandals on stone, and the commanding voice of an orator practicing a speech in a far corner. This is the civic, religious, and commercial nucleus of Pompeii, the grand stage upon which public life is performed. You stand for a moment at the southern end, simply taking it all in. The plaza is paved with travertine slabs, polished by generations of footsteps. All around its perimeter runs a grand two-story colonnade, a covered walkway that provides shade from the sun and shelter from the rain. Behind these columns stand the most important buildings of the city, their grand facades a testament to Roman power and order. Dominating the entire scene, at the far northern end, stands the majestic Temple of Jupiter. Its towering columns and high podium make it the focal point of the entire space, a constant reminder of the divine authority that watches over Rome. To your left, you see the massive, imposing structure of the basilica, the city's law, court, and business hall. To your right is the Masalum, the main food market, and next to it, a beautiful building dedicated by a public priestess named Eumacia, which served as the headquarters for the Guild of Fullers, the city's cloth workers. It is an obscure but telling detail that such a prominent public building was funded by a woman, showcasing the significant influence and wealth some women could wield in Roman society. The Forum is a pedestrian-only zone, a widely known feature designed to preserve its dignity and safety. At each entrance, large stone blocks are set in the ground to prevent the noisy, disruptive wheeled carts of the city from entering this civic sanctuary. Here, you must walk. The space is filled with people from every walk of life. You see senators in their finest togas, their white wool seeming to glow in the sunlight, engaged in serious conversation. Merchants haggle over contracts in the shade of the colonnade. Lawyers with scrolls tucked under their arms hurry towards the basilica. You even spot a teacher with a small group of boys using the public monuments as a lesson in history and civic duty. Scattered across the plaza are numerous statues on high pedestals, bronze and marble figures of emperors, local dignitaries, and gods, all silent, eternal observers of the daily drama. Historians still debate whether the Forum was always this grand, open space, or if it was typically cluttered with temporary wooden stalls and a more chaotic, market-like atmosphere. The evidence suggests it was likely a mixture of both, a place of high ceremony that could also accommodate the messier realities of commerce. Today, it feels ordered and grand, a place for important business. You feel a sense of purpose walking here. This is the heart of your world. Every major decision, every significant transaction, every important religious ceremony happens in this space. It is the Roman equivalent of Main Street, the town square, and the Capitol Mall, all rolled into one magnificent, sun-drenched plaza. You adjust the heavy folds of your toga and begin your walk across the open space. Your destination, the basilica, where a business associate is waiting. You walk across the sun-bleached stones of the Forum. Your destination, the large, impressive building on the western side. Its entrance is a grand affair, with 5 doorways separated by massive, tough columns leading from the portico into the building's interior. As you pass through one of these entrances, you are immediately struck by a profound change in atmosphere. The bright, open-air energy of the Forum is replaced by the cool, shaded solemnity of the basilica. The sheer scale of the interior is awe-inspiring. It is a vast, long hall with its central space, the nave, flanked on both sides by a corridor, or aisle, separated by a majestic row of tall Ionic columns. High above, small clear-story windows let in shafts of muted light, illuminating the dust motes that hang in the still air and creating a cathedral-like feeling of reverence. In fact, this architectural design, the basilica plan, is a widely known Roman innovation that would later be adopted as the standard layout for Christian churches throughout the world. Here, however, it serves the gods of commerce and law. The sound is different here, too. The open-air clamor of the forum has been replaced by a low, serious hum of purposeful activity. Voices are kept low, echoing slightly in the enormous space. The air smells of old stone, papyrus scrolls, and the faint, metallic scent of coins. You are standing in the engine room of the Pompeian economy and its legal system. This is where major business contracts were signed, where moneylenders conducted their affairs, and where citizens came to seek justice. You see men clustered in small groups, their faces serious as they negotiate a deal for a shipment of garum from Spain or a consignment of wine from the slopes of Vesuvius. A scribe sits at a small wooden table, his stylus scratching quickly across a wax tablet, recording the terms of an agreement for a witness. Your gaze is drawn to the far end of the great hall. There, on a raised two-story platform known as the tribunal, sits the city's senior magistrate, the duumvir. He is flanked by his attendants, or lictors, who stand as symbols of his authority. He is presiding over a legal dispute. You can just make out the plaintiff, a merchant, gesticulating passionately as he makes his case against a debtor. It is the Roman equivalent of a high court, a place of ultimate civic authority. Historians still debate the degree to which the complex, codified Roman law practiced in the capital was applied in provincial towns like Pompeii, versus the influence of local customs and the magistrate's personal discretion. The scene before you suggests a mixture of formal procedure and passionate, personal appeal. As you walk along one of the side aisles, observing the sober proceedings, you notice something that seems out of place. Scratched into the plaster of one of the grand columns, low down near the base, is a child's drawing of a gladiatorial fight. A stick figure with a sword and shield. Not far from it, someone has practiced writing their letters. This graffiti, an obscure curiosity found by archaeologists, stands in stark contrast to the building's formal purpose. It is a humanizing touch, a reminder that even in this great hall of justice and commerce, people got bored. Perhaps a child waiting for his father to finish some business, or a clerk with a few moments of idle time, left these small, anonymous marks. It is a testament to the universal human need to leave a trace, to say I was here, even in the most imposing of settings. You find your business associate near the main entrance, and with a formal nod, you begin your own negotiations, your hushed voices joining the quiet, purposeful hum of the basilica. With your business in the basilica concluded, you step back out from the cool, solemn hall into the bright, open air of the forum. Your gaze is immediately drawn north to the building that dominates the entire plaza. You are looking at the Temple of Jupiter, the religious and symbolic heart of Pompeii. It sits atop a high podium, raising it above all the other structures, a physical representation of its importance. To approach it, you must ascend a wide, imposing flight of stairs. As you climb, the sounds of the forum begin to recede, and with each step, the world of commerce and law falls away, replaced by a sense of elevated reverence. When you reach the top, you turn for a moment and look back. From this vantage point, you have a commanding view of the entire forum, the bustling plaza laid out before you, all under the watchful gaze of the god. The two triumphal arches that flank the temple, one likely dedicated to Tiberius and the other to Nero, now act as a frame for your view, a constant reminder that religious authority and imperial power are inextricably linked. You turn back to the temple. Its facade is a grand portico of towering Corinthian columns, their capitals intricately carved with acanthus leaves. You walk between them, passing from the bright sun into the deep shade of the porch, and then through a single, massive doorway into the inner sanctuary, the cella. The air inside is cool and still, thick with the sweet, cloying scent of decades of burnt incense and the faint, metallic tang of past sacrifices. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust to the dim light. At the far end of the long room, against the back wall, stands the reason for all this grandeur, the cult statue. It is a colossal seated figure of Jupiter, king of the gods, crafted from bronze or marble. He is depicted in the traditional manner, a powerful, bearded figure holding a thunderbolt in one hand and a scepter in the other. This temple, a widely known fact, was the city's Capitolium, dedicated not just to Jupiter but to the entire Capitoline triad, which also included his wife Juno and their daughter Minerva. Their statues would have stood here as well, forming the core of Roman state religion. This was not just a place for quiet prayer, it was the primary stage for public religious ceremonies, where magistrates would offer sacrifices on behalf of the city to ensure the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods, and thus secure Pompeii's prosperity and safety. However, an obscure but crucial aspect of this temple's function was its role in the imperial cult. Mixed in with the worship of the old gods was the veneration of the Roman emperors, both those who had been deified after death and the living emperor himself. This practice was a powerful political tool, binding the diverse peoples of the empire together in shared loyalty to a single, godlike ruler. Your devotion to Jupiter was also a declaration of your loyalty to Rome and its emperor. Historians still debate the nature of personal faith in the Roman world, questioning whether the average citizen felt a deep emotional piety or viewed religion as a set of public duties and contractual obligations to be fulfilled. Was it about love for the gods, or was it a pragmatic insurance policy against divine wrath and civic misfortune? Standing here in the silent presence of the great statue, it feels like a mixture of both. There is awe, a sense of being part of something immense and ancient. But there is also a clear understanding that proper observance is a citizen's duty. You leave a small coin in an offering box, a simple gesture of respect, and step back out into the blinding Italian sun, your civic and religious obligations for the morning fulfilled. Leaving the temple behind, you descend the grand staircase and re-enter the bustling world of the Forum. The sun is higher in the sky now, approaching its zenith, and the heat rising from the stone pavement is palpable. Your morning of business and religious observance has stirred your appetite. The light breakfast of bread and cheese you had hours ago is a distant memory. A full, formal meal. The cena will not be served until late in the afternoon, back in the comfort of your home. But you need something to sustain you now, something quick, hot, and convenient. You leave the Grand Plaza and duck back into one of the narrower side streets. Your destination, a place you can smell before you can see it. The air is thick with the savory aromas of roasting meat, simmering lentils, and the sharp, pleasant scent of mulled wine. You have arrived at a thermopolium. It is the Roman equivalent of a modern fast food counter or a street-side cafe, and they are ubiquitous in Pompeii. This one has a wide open front, completely exposed to the street, inviting customers in. The centerpiece is a distinctive L-shaped masonry counter, its surface decorated with small, colorful pieces of inlaid marble. Set directly into this counter are several large, round earthenware jars called dolia. These pots are sunk deep into the masonry, which acts as an insulator, and they contain the day's offerings, kept warm by a charcoal brazier placed underneath. This setup is a widely known feature of these establishments, a clever and efficient system for serving hot food to people on the go. There is no menu board. You simply look into the pots and see what is on offer. The proprietor, a stained man with a stained tunic and a surprisingly friendly smile, nods at you as you approach. You peer into the dolia. One contains a thick, hearty lentil stew. Another holds chunks of roasted pork simmering in a savory sauce. A third is filled with spiced wine, heated with honey and pepper, its fragrant steam warming your face. This is simple, unpretentious food for ordinary people. It is a world away from the exotic dishes, like stuffed dormice or flamingo tongues, that might be served at an elite dinner party. This is fuel for the working city. You point to the pork, and the owner uses a long-handled ladle to scoop a generous portion into a simple clay bowl. He He hands it to you, along with a chunk of the same kind of hearty bread you had for breakfast. You pay with a couple of small bronze coins. The transaction's swift and efficient. There are a few small stools inside, but most customers, yourself included, stand to eat, either just inside the doorway or out on the street. As you eat the hot, savory pork, you look around the small establishment. Behind the counter, you see a small shrine built into the wall, a lararium, just like the one in your own home. This is an obscure but common feature in Pompeian commercial establishments, a reminder that the gods of the household also protected one's business and livelihood. The owner would have made daily offerings here to ensure good fortune. Historians continue to debate the primary clientele of these thermopolia. Were they mainly for the city's poor, many of whom lived in small apartments or upper rooms without any cooking facilities of their own? Or were they frequented by all social classes, including businessmen like yourself, who simply wanted a convenient lunch, much like a modern-day professional grabbing a sandwich? The mix of customers around you suggests the latter. You see a pair of builders covered in dust, a messenger boy, and another man whose toga marks him as a fellow citizen. It is a democratic dining experience, united by the simple, universal need for a midday meal. The food is delicious, and in a few minutes, your bowl is empty. You feel satisfied and re-energized, ready for the afternoon. Your quick and satisfying lunch is finished, and you step out of the thermopolium, leaving the scent of spiced wine and pork behind. You are already in the immediate vicinity of the forum, and your next destination is just a few steps away. You walk toward a large, open-sided building directly adjacent to the forum's northeastern corner. This is the Mausoleum Pompeii's central market for fresh food. As you approach its entrance, a wall of smells hits you, a complex and potent mixture that is the signature scent of any marketplace. There is the sweet, earthy smell of ripe figs and dusty vegetables, the fragrant perfume of herbs, the metallic temps of a butcher's stall, and, dominating everything, the sharp, salty, and unmistakably pungent aroma of the sea. You step into a large, rectangular courtyard, open to the sky, surrounded on all sides by a covered portico. The space is a hive of activity, a vibrant, noisy contrast to the more dignified proceedings of the forum and basilica. Here, the voices are loud, a cacophony of vendors shouting their prices and shoppers haggling with practiced ferocity. In the center of the courtyard stands a circular, roofed structure supported by 12 columns. This is the tholos, the heart of the mausoleum, and its purpose is immediately clear from the scales and fish bones littering the floor around it. This is the fish market. In the middle of the structure is a large, circular stone slab with a raised rim and a drainage system designed for gutting and cleaning fish. A constant supply of fresh water, channeled from the aqueduct, sluices across the slab, washing the blood and viscera away. This central fish cleaning station is a widely known and iconic feature of Pompeii's market. You watch a fisherman expertly scale a large sea bass, his movements quick and precise. The bounty of the Bay of Naples is on full display here. Silvery sardines, plump bream, ugly but delicious scorpion fish, and even writhing eels in shallow tubs of water. Around the central courtyard, under the shade of the portico, are numerous small shops, or tabernae. You wander past them, taking in the sights. One stall is a riot of color, piled high with fruit and vegetables. You see pyramids of purple grapes, baskets of wrinkled olives, and pale green melons. You spot pomegranates, their tough, leathery skins hiding a treasure of jewel-like seeds. The sheer variety of produce raises a question that historians still debate, namely, how much of this was locally grown versus imported. While most produce would have come from the fertile countryside around Vesuvius, the presence of certain exotic goods suggests a robust trade network bringing delicacies from across the Roman world. At the far end of the market, you find the butcher stalls, with cuts of pork, goat, and mutton hanging from bronze hooks. As you explore, you notice a more formal, shrine-like structure at the back of the courtyard, facing the entrance. It seems almost out of place amidst the commercial chaos. This is an imperial cult shrine, an obscure but fascinating detail. Inside, archaeologists found statues, likely of members of the imperial family. This sacred space, right in the middle of the smelly, noisy fish market, is a powerful statement. It inextricably links the provision of food for the city, the emperor's divine benevolence, and the prosperity of Pompeii. It's a reminder that even in the most mundane act of buying dinner, the Roman citizen was under the watchful and supposedly generous eye of the emperor. Finally, you identify the source of the most potent smell in the market. A vendor is selling small, sealed clay jars, or ursae filled with a dark, viscous liquid. This is garum, the infamous Roman fish sauce. It was a condiment as essential to Roman cooking as soy sauce is to many Asian cuisines. A fermented, salty, umami-rich liquid made from the entrails of fish like mackerel and anchovies. Its smell is overpowering, a concentrated essence of fermented sea life. Yet it was a taste beloved by the Romans, used to flavor everything from stews to desserts. You watch a woman buy a small jar, a vital ingredient for her evening meal, and you continue your journey through the sensory overload of the Macellum, leaving the sharp tang of garum and the cries of the fishmongers behind. You are guided by your nose once more, but this time toward a scent that is universally comforting and deeply familiar. It is the warm, wholesome, and slightly sweet aroma of baking bread. A few doors down from the Macellum, you find its source, a pistrinum, a commercial bakery. Like most Pompeian shops, it is wide open to the street, the line between public and private workspace completely blurred. You pause at the threshold, looking into a scene of dusty, industrious labor. The air inside is warm and thick with flour, which hangs in the air like a fine mist and coats every surface with a soft, white powder. The floor is stone, and the walls are the same dark, utilitarian tuff you've seen elsewhere. But here everything is softened by its film of flour. Your eyes are immediately drawn to the most dominant features of the room, the mills. They are massive, imposing structures, standing shoulder high to a grown man. There are 4 of them in this bakery, arranged in a row. Each mill is made of 2 pieces of dark, vesicular volcanic stone. The bottom piece, the meta, is a solid cone fixed to a masonry base. The top piece, the catalyst, is a hollow, hourglass-shaped stone that fits over it like a cap. This design is a widely known and ingenious piece of Roman technology. A heavy wooden frame is fitted to the top stone, and harnessed to this frame is the bakery's engine. A tired-looking donkey, its eyes covered with cloth blinders to keep it from getting dizzy. The animal plods in a slow, endless circle, its hooves shuffling on the stone floor, pushing the heavy beam and turning the top millstone. A slave boy periodically pours buckets of grain into the top of the mill, and as the catalyst grinds against the meta, a fine white flour trickles out from the gap between them, collecting in a trough at the base. It is a slow, powerful, and hypnotic process, the living heart of the bakery's production. On the other side of the room, a baker, his arms and tunic white with flour, kneads a huge mound of dough on a large wooden table. His movements are strong and rhythmic, a practiced dance of folding and pushing. Beyond him, you see the fiery mouth of the oven, a huge, domed structure built of brick, its interior glowing with a fierce orange light. A long wooden paddle with a flat, wide end, the Roman palla, leans against the wall, ready to slide the proofed loaves into the inferno. You notice a curious carving on the side of the great brick oven, a symbol often seen in Pompeii, meant to represent fertility and good fortune, placed here to ward off the evil eye and ensure a good bake. This use of such symbols in commercial settings is an obscure but common feature of the city's culture, a folk magic woven into the fabric of daily business. Historians still debate the economic structure of these bakeries, questioning whether they were independent, family-run businesses or part of larger networked operations controlled by wealthy patrons who owned multiple such enterprises across the city. The scale of this operation, with its 4 large mills, suggests a significant commercial enterprise, supplying bread not just to individuals, but perhaps to the various thermopolia in the neighborhood as well. On long wooden racks near the front, the finished products are cooling. You see dozens of round, dark loaves, all scored deeply on top with 8 sections. The Ponies Quadratus you ate this morning. The baker sees you looking and, with a flowery hand, gestures for you to buy. You purchase a small, warm roll for a single coin. You break it open, steam escaping in a fragrant cloud. It is a simple, perfect pleasure, a taste of the labor and the land, a moment of quiet satisfaction before you head towards your afternoon leisure. With the warm, simple taste of the roll still on your tongue, you feel the full force of the afternoon. The sun is high and unforgiving, beating down on the basalt paving stones and reflecting off the plastered walls. The energy of the morning's business has given way to a more languid, heavy heat. For the citizens of Pompeii, this is a time for leisure, for washing away the dust and sweat of the day, and for socializing. There is only one logical destination, the same one that half the city is heading towards. You make your way to the Stabian Baths, the oldest and largest of the city's public thermae. As you approach the sprawling complex, you can hear the sounds from within, a dull roar of echoing voices, laughter, and the constant splashing of water, all spilling out from its various entrances. You enter the men's section and are immediately in the amphitheater, the changing room. The atmosphere is thick with humidity, the smell of damp bodies, and the fragrant aroma of perfumed oils. It is a large, vaulted room, its walls decorated with beautiful stucco figures. Along the walls are rows of small, square niches, all oculi, set into the plaster. This is the Roman locker room, and you claim an empty niche for your toga and tunic. You fold them carefully and place them inside. Now, you face a classic Roman dilemma. Theft in the baths was notoriously common, a widely known social problem, often lamented by ancient writers. You could entrust your belongings to a capsarius, a slave attendant who, for a small fee, would guard the lockers, but they were not always trustworthy themselves. It was a calculated risk. An obscure but practical solution many Romans employed was to bring as little of value as possible, or to have a trusted personal slave stand guard. You decide to take your chances. Stripped down to a simple linen wrap, or perhaps nothing at all, you begin the bathing ritual. You don't head for the water just yet. You first enter the tepidarium, the warm room. The heat here is gentle and pleasant, a mild, dry warmth that emanates from the floor and walls. This room is the grand social hub of the bathhouse, designed to help you acclimatize to the heat and, more importantly, to relax and converse. You see men of all ages reclining on benches, their skin gleaming with a light sheen of sweat, engaged in animated conversation. They discuss business, politics, the latest gossip, or the upcoming gladiatorial games. The source of this pleasant heat is the famous Roman hypocaust system. The floor is raised up on short pillars of brick, creating a space underneath through which hot air, drawn from a massive furnace, is circulated. This radiant heat warms the tiles under your feet and the air around you, a marvel of ancient central heating. From here, you move into the caldarium, the hot room. The change is immediate and intense. A wave of thick, wet heat and steam envelops you, making you gasp. The air is so heavy with moisture you can barely see the other end of the room. Your skin instantly breaks into a heavy sweat. This is the sauna and the washroom combined. At one end is a large, hot water bath for soaking, and at the other is a labrum, a massive, shallow basin of cold water for splashing on your face to provide a moment of shocking relief. Here, the real cleaning begins. A slave rubs warm olive oil all over your body. Then, using a curved metal tool called a strigil, he scrapes off the oil, and with it, all the dirt, grime, and dead skin. After a final rinse, you make your way to the last stop in the circuit, the frigidarium. This room contains a deep, circular pool of unheated water. You take a deep breath and plunge in. The shock of the cold is breathtaking, an electrifying jolt that closes your pores and leaves you feeling utterly refreshed and alive. Historians still debate whether the public baths were true social equalizers, places where a senator and a shoemaker could relax as peers. While men of all classes used them, it is likely that the wealthy were still distinguished by their retinue of slaves carrying their expensive oils and strigils, creating a subtle but clear hierarchy even in nakedness. You climb out of the cold pool, your skin tingling, feeling clean, renewed, and thoroughly connected to the social pulse of your city. You step out of the cool, damp world of the frigidarium, not back into a changing room, but through a different doorway that leads directly outside. The transition is once again a shock to the senses. You are immediately hit by the full force of the bright, unfiltered afternoon sun and the dry, dusty air of a vast open-air courtyard. You have entered the palestra, the public gymnasium, a sprawling space for exercise and recreation physically attached to the bath complex. The area is immense, a great rectangle of packed earth surrounded on all sides by a graceful colonnade of Doric columns, providing a shaded walkway for spectators and those resting between exercises. In the center of the dusty expanse is a magnificent open-air swimming pool, or piscina, its water sparkling a brilliant turquoise under the sun. The air here is filled with the sounds of effort and youth, the grunts of exertion, the rhythmic thud of a ball being passed, the slap of skin on skin, and the occasional shout of triumph or frustration. This is where the Roman ideal of mens sana in corpore sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body, is put into practice. It is a widely known Roman philosophy, and here you see it in its most literal form. Physical fitness was not just about aesthetics. It was a civic virtue, a sign of a disciplined and capable citizen. You find a spot in the shade of the colonnade and watch the scene before you. In one corner, a pair of young men, their bodies oiled and gleaming in the sun, are wrestling. They grapple in the soft dust, muscles straining. Their movements a tense and focused dance of strength and leverage. A trainer, a grizzled older man with the physique of a former athlete, circles them, shouting encouragement and technical advice. A little further on, another group of men is exercising with halters, stone or metal weights that look like primitive dumbbells. They swing them to gain momentum for a long jump or lift them to build strength in their arms and shoulders. Their faces are grim with concentration, each repetition a small victory over gravity. But not all the activity is so serious. Your attention is caught by a fast-paced and chaotic game being played by three young men arranged in a triangle. They are playing Trigon, a popular Roman ball game. They use their left hands to catch and their right hands to throw several small, hard balls simultaneously and as rapidly as possible, aiming to make their opponents drop a catch. It is a dizzying display of reflexes and coordination, filled with laughter and good-natured insults. The specific rules and widespread popularity of games like Trigon are an obscure but fascinating aspect of Roman daily life, showing a love for play and competition that went beyond the brutal spectacle of the arena. You see boys receiving athletic instruction, men of your own status maintaining their fitness, and older gentlemen engaged in a more sedate game of catch. Historians still debate whether the palestra was primarily a training ground for the local youth militia, or more of a social and recreational space for the well-to-do. The mixture of ages and the playful atmosphere around you suggest it was a versatile space, serving the needs of the community for both serious training and leisurely sport. It is a place of energy, of health, and of a certain kind of communal pride. After the quiet contemplation of the forum and the enclosed, humid intimacy of the baths, the vibrant, open energy of the palestra is a welcome change, a final, energizing step in your afternoon ritual before you seek out the day's main entertainment. Feeling invigorated from your time at the baths and the palestra, you know that the afternoon holds one last, great public spectacle. You join the river of people flowing through the streets, a current of excitement and anticipation pulling everyone in the same direction, toward the southeastern corner of the city. The low hum of the city streets gradually transforms into a louder, more focused roar, the sound of a massive crowd gathered in one place. You round a final corner, and there it is, rising from the earth like a man-made mountain of stone, the amphitheater of Pompeii. It is a colossal, elliptical structure, its high, arched walls casting a long shadow in the late afternoon sun. This is one of the oldest surviving Roman amphitheaters in the world, a widely known and sobering fact of its history. It was built around 70 BC, a silent stone witness to decades of brutal, bloody entertainment. You follow the crowd up a steep external staircase. Your ticket a small, inscribed piece of bone or clay called a tessera, which indicates your designated entrance and seating section. Society in the amphitheater was a perfect mirror of society outside its walls, rigidly stratified. The best seats, in the lowest tiers closest to the action, the immersive, were reserved for the city magistrates and the elite. As a respectable citizen, your seat would be in the middle section, the media cavea. The highest seats, the summa cavea, right at the top, were for women, and even higher, with the worst views, were the slaves and the poor. There was no social mixing here. You find your stone seat and look down into the arena, a vast oval expanse of packed sand. The word arena itself means sand in Latin, a reference to the thick layer used to soak up the blood that was inevitably spilled. A hush falls over the 20,000 spectators as the opening procession, the pompa, begins. Trumpets blare, their brassy notes echoing off the stone walls. The magistrates who sponsored the day's games enter in a grand procession, followed by priests and finally, the stars of the show, the gladiators themselves. They are a fearsome sight, their muscular bodies clad in elaborate and intimidating armor. You see the Murmelo with his large, crested helmet and tall shield, the agile Retiarius, armed only with a net and a trident, and the heavily armed Hoplomachus with his spear and dagger. They parade around the arena, stopping below the magistrate's box to give their famous, chilling salute. The crowd roars its approval. The day's events, the Munera, might begin with mock fights, or perhaps animal hunts. The Venasines, where exotic beasts, like bears or boars, are pitted against armed hunters. But the main event is always the gladiatorial combat. An obscure but important detail is that not all gladiatorial fights ended in death. These men were expensive assets, highly trained athletes owned by a trainer or lanista. A gladiator who fought well but was defeated could be granted a reprieve, a missio, if the crowd and the sponsor of the games willed it. He lived to fight another day. Historians still debate the true social status of gladiators. Were they universally despised as slaves and criminals, the lowest of the low, or were they also admired as celebrity athletes, figures of brute strength and courage who captured the public's imagination? The graffiti you saw earlier, praising Celadis as the heartthrob of the girls, suggests a complex mixture of both disgust and adoration. The trumpets sound again. A fight is about to begin. You lean forward with the rest of the crowd, your heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and dread, caught up in the powerful, primal energy of the arena. The raw, visceral energy of the amphitheater begins to fade as you walk back toward the heart of the city. The roar of the crowd replaced by the more familiar, gentle hum of daily life. The sun is lower now, casting long, dramatic shadows that stretch across the streets, and the intense heat of the afternoon has softened into a pleasant, golden warmth. Your day of public duties and spectacles is over. The evening, a time for private leisure and socializing, is approaching. You have been invited to the home of a wealthy acquaintance for this evening's dinner party. The scene, and you arrive at his doorstep as the day begins to cool. You are not led to the atrium this time, but are guided through the house to the peristyle, the grand colonnaded garden at the rear of the domus, where the host's most important guests are gathering before the meal. As you step into this tranquil, shaded space, your eyes are met with a symphony of color that has nothing to do with the flowers in the garden. Every wall of the covered portico surrounding the garden is a canvas, a breathtaking expanse of vibrant, intricate painting. The walls themselves seem to disappear, replaced by windows into a world of myth, legend, and impossible beauty. This is the art of the fresco, and it is a widely known and celebrated feature of Pompeian homes, transforming simple plaster walls into masterpieces of illusion. The technique itself is a marvel, where pigments are applied to wet plaster so that the color chemically bonds with the wall as it dries, becoming a permanent and durable part of the structure. You are struck immediately by the famous Pompeian red, a deep, earthy crimson so vibrant it seems to pulse with a life of its own, used as a dramatic background for many of the scenes. You walk slowly along the colonnade, as if in a gallery. Each panel tells a story. On one wall, you see the tragic fall of Icarus, his wax wings melting as he flies too close to the sun, his body tumbling towards a deep blue sea. On another, Narcissus stares, captivated, at his own reflection in a pool, unaware of the world around him. These are not just decorations, they are conversations. They speak of the owner's education, his worldliness, his appreciation for the great stories of Greek and Roman culture. Historians still debate whether these elaborate mythological scenes were chosen purely for their aesthetic beauty, or as complex allegories meant to showcase the owner's literary knowledge and social status. Was that painting of Venus and Mars a simple celebration of love, or a subtle political statement about peace and power? As you move through different rooms adjoining the peristyle, you begin to notice variations in the artwork, a subtle evolution of taste. This is an obscure but fascinating detail for modern archaeologists, who have classified the frescoes into 4 distinct Pompeian styles. In one older room, you see the first style, which simply imitates the look of expensive, colored marble blocks using painted stucco. In a grand reception room, you see the second style, where the painters created realistic, three-dimensional landscapes and architectural vistas, attempting to dissolve the walls and open the room up to a fantastic, imaginary world. In a more intimate chamber, you find the third style, elegant and delicate, featuring small, exquisitely detailed, floating scenes set against large, monochromatic backgrounds of black or red. Finally, the main peristyle itself is decorated in the fourth style, a chaotic and theatrical mix of all the previous styles, a busy, eclectic, and wonderfully vibrant mashup of illusionistic windows, mythological scenes, and delicate ornamentation. The effect is immersive and overwhelming, a testament to the wealth and taste of your host. You are not simply in a house, you are inside a storybook, a world of color and myth designed to delight, impress, and transport you. As you continue to admire the stunning frescoes, your gaze is drawn downward to the floor beneath your feet. Here, a different kind of artistry is on display, equally intricate and far more durable. The entire floor of the peristyle portico is a magnificent mosaic, a painstakingly crafted carpet of stone and glass. Thousands upon thousands of tiny, colored squares, called tesserae, have been meticulously set into a bed of mortar to create a stunning, complex image. The most famous mosaic in Pompeii, a widely known masterpiece depicting Alexander the Great at the Battle of Issus, was found in a house not far from here. The mosaic you are walking on now is more decorative, a geometric pattern of interlocking circles and squares that creates a mesmerizing, hypnotic effect. The craftsmanship is breathtaking. The colors are rich and varied, and the small, irregular shapes of the hand-cut tesserae catch the light in a way that makes the surface shimmer and seem almost alive. As you walk toward the center of the peristyle, you enter the garden itself, an open-air oasis of tranquility and carefully cultivated nature. A small central fountain bubbles gently, its water trickling into a shallow marble basin, the sound a soft, soothing counterpoint to the quiet murmur of conversation from the other guests. The garden is laid out with formal precision, low hedges of boxwood creating geometric beds filled with fragrant flowers like roses, lilies, and violets. The air is sweet with their perfume. Scattered artfully among the plantings are several bronze and marble statues. You see a graceful figure of Venus, the goddess of love and gardens, and a playful statue of a young satyr drinking from a wineskin. These statues were not just decorations, they were status symbols. Bronze statues in particular were incredibly expensive, and owning a collection of high-quality pieces was a clear and unambiguous display of immense wealth. An obscure curiosity that modern science has revealed is that many of these white marble statues were originally not white at all. They would have been painted in bright, lifelike colors, a detail that is almost impossible to imagine now, as we are so used to the stark, classical whiteness of ancient sculpture. Your host sees you admiring his garden and beckons you over to a particularly fine bronze statue of a faun. He explains that it was cast using the lost wax method, a complex technique that allowed for incredible detail and dynamism. This specific statue, with its joyous dancing pose, gives his house, the House of the Faun, its modern name. He points out the small, almost hidden details, the texture of the hair, the tension in the muscles. Showcasing his connoisseurship, historians still debate the relationship between these Roman artworks and their Greek originals. Were the Roman sculptors simply creating soulless copies of famous Greek masterpieces to satisfy a fashionable market? Or were they creative artists in their own right, adapting and reinterpreting those older works to suit Roman tastes and values? The sheer quality and vitality of the statues in this garden suggest a deep and genuine artistic tradition, not mere imitation. The combination of the vibrant frescoes, the shimmering mosaics, and the serene garden with its elegant statues creates a powerful, immersive experience. It is a carefully constructed paradise, a testament to the Roman elite's love of beauty and their desire to create a private world of refined, civilized pleasure, a perfect setting for the elaborate meal that is about to begin. As the last of the golden sunlight fades from the peristyle garden, a slave approaches and quietly announces that the cena is ready to be served. The soft light of dusk is now replaced by the warm, flickering glow of oil lamps, their small flames casting dancing shadows on the frescoed walls and making the bronze statues seem to stir in the uncertain light. You and the other guests are led from the garden into the triclinium, the formal dining room. The room is opulent, its walls and floors decorated with the same lavish frescoes and intricate mosaics you have just been admiring. But the centerpiece of the room, the feature that gives it its name, is the arrangement of 3 wide couches set in a U-shape around a central, low table. Each couch, or lectus, is large enough to accommodate 3 diners, who will recline on their left elbows, propped up by cushions, leaving their right hands free for eating. This reclining posture is a widely known and iconic feature of the Roman banquet, a custom adopted from the Greeks and Etruscans. It was a posture of relaxation and privilege, a world away from sitting upright on a stool like a common laborer at a thermopolium. You were shown to your designated place on one of the couches. The seating arrangement is not random. It is a carefully calculated map of the social hierarchy of the guests, with the most honored positions on the central couch, flanking the host. Your position reflects your status in your host's eyes, and everyone in the room is aware of the subtle messages being sent by where they are placed. Slaves move silently and efficiently around the room. One comes to your couch and gently removes your sandals, which are placed under the leg. Another slave approaches with a silver basin and a pitcher of perfumed water. pouring a small, warm stream over your hands for you to wash them before the meal begins. There are no forks at a Roman dinner. You will eat with your fingertips or a small spoon, so clean hands are an absolute necessity. The central table is laden with the first course, the gustatio, the Roman equivalent of an appetizer. It is a colorful and tempting display of small dishes. You see platters of olives, sliced radishes, and mushrooms. There is a dish of hard-boiled eggs, sliced and sprinkled with a piquant sauce made from garum and pepper. And, in a nod to luxury, there is a platter of dormice, a famous Roman delicacy, which have been stuffed with a mixture of pork and spices, and then baked or fried until golden. This might seem like an obscure and unusual dish to a modern palate, but for the Romans it was a prized treat. Historians still debate the true extent to which such exotic foods were a regular feature of elite dining versus a form of conspicuous consumption, served primarily to shock and impress guests. Looking at the dormice, you suspect it is a bit of both. A slave pours you a cup of wine, and this time it is of a much higher quality than the simple, watered-down vintage you had this morning. It is a Falernian, a famous and expensive white wine from the vineyards on the northern slope of Mount Vesuvius. Its taste's rich and complex. The host raises his cup, makes a brief offering to the household gods by flicking a few drops onto the floor, and gives a toast to his guests. The cena has officially begun. The atmosphere in the room is one of relaxed, sophisticated indulgence. A carefully orchestrated performance of wealth, taste, and hospitality. And this is only the beginning. You settle into the reclining position on the couch, and posture that feels both decadent and slightly awkward. It forces a certain slowness, an inability to rush the meal. You use your fingers to pick up a honey-glazed dormouse, its taste a surprising and rich combination of savory and sweet. You eat a few salty olives and a piece of egg. The complex flavors, a perfect start to the culinary journey ahead. Slaves move with practiced invisibility, clearing the remnants of the gustatio as soon as a dish is empty, and ensuring your wine cup is never less than half full. The real dinner, the prime mensae, or main courses, now begins. What follows is a theatrical procession of culinary extravagance, each dish designed to impress the senses and display the host's boundless wealth. A massive platter is brought in, carried by 2 slaves, and set on the central table. On it rests a whole roasted boar, its skin crackling and golden. With a flourish, a specialized slave, the scissor, steps forward and, with the skill of a surgeon and the flair of a performer, carves the animal with a series of swift, dancing cuts, all in time to the music of a softly playing lyre in the corner of the room. Platters of the succulent meat are passed around. This is followed by a parade of other dishes. A large fish baked in a salt crust, which is cracked open at the table to reveal the tender, steaming flesh within. There are birds cooked in exotic sauces, trays of shellfish, and vegetables prepared in a dozen different ways. The air becomes thick with a rich tapestry of aromas. The conversation flows, lubricated by the excellent wine, but it is always guided and orchestrated by the host. He tells an amusing anecdote. He asks a guest a pointed question about a business venture. He steers the talk away from dangerous political territory. The dinner party is a performance, and he is its director. As you enjoy the feast, you notice a subtle detail. While your cup is consistently refilled with the exquisite Falernian wine, you see a slave pouring a darker, less fragrant wine into the cups of the guests on the outermost couch. The lectus imus, which is reserved for clients or less important attendees. This is an obscure but common practice, a quiet reinforcement of the social hierarchy, where even the quality of the wine one drinks is determined by one's status. It is a small, almost invisible gesture that speaks volumes about the rigid structure of this society. While the lyre plays and a reader recites verses from Virgil's Aeneid, you ponder the scene. This level of opulence is staggering. It brings to mind the writings of moralists like the philosopher Seneca. who railed against such decadence, describing feasts that lasted for days, and men who would induce vomiting so they could continue to gorge themselves. Historians still debate how much these accounts reflect the reality of elite dining versus how much they were moralizing exaggerations designed to critique a perceived decline in Roman values. Was the scene before you a typical dinner for a man of this class, or was it a particularly ostentatious display for a special occasion? The remains of the main courses are finally cleared away. Slaves once again bring bowls of water for you to rinse your sticky fingers. The tables are wiped clean, and the final course, the secundae mensae, is presented. This is the dessert course, consisting of fresh fruits like grapes and figs, platters of nuts, and various honey-sweetened cakes and pastries. It is a lighter, sweeter end to the heavy meal. With the formal eating concluded, the atmosphere shifts. The lamps are trimmed. The serious drinking and conversation, the conversatio, can now begin, often lasting late into the night. It is a world of pure indulgence, a carefully crafted bubble of pleasure and privilege, a perfect Roman evening. The hour is late. The wine and conversation have flowed for hours, but now the party is winding down. You take your leave from the host, your sandals are returned, and a slave with a flickering oil lamp guides you from the warm, bright triclinium, through the nascent peristyle, and to the main door. You step out of the opulent domus, and into the profound quiet of the Pompeian night. The transformation is absolute. The chaotic, noisy, sun-drenched city of the day has vanished, replaced by a world of deep shadows and hushed stillness. The moon is a silver sliver in the sky, and the stars are a brilliant, scattered dust of diamonds, clearer and brighter than you could ever imagine seeing them in a modern city. Your footsteps on the basalt flagstones are the loudest sound, a solitary, rhythmic echo that follows you down the narrow street. The air is cool and carries the sweet, heavy scent of jasmine from a hidden garden behind the high wall. The shops are all shuttered, their wide openings now covered by heavy wooden doors, barred from the inside. The city has turned inward, each home a small, self-contained world of sleep and dreams. The streets are not completely dark, however. Small terracotta oil lamps, the luspinae, hang from brackets on the walls of wealthier homes and at major crossroads, casting small, isolated pools of warm, yellow light. They create an uncertain, mysterious landscape of light and shadow, where a familiar street becomes a new and slightly intimidating place. You walk with a purpose, moving from one small island of light to the next. As you walk, you pass a small group of men carrying cudgels and lanterns. They are the Night Watch, the city's patrol, responsible for keeping the peace and, more importantly, watching for the ever-present danger of fire in a city of wood, oil, and open hearths. This patrol is a widely known feature of Roman urban life, though historians still debate how organized and effective this force was in a smaller provincial city like Pompeii compared to the famous cohorts of vigils in Rome. Their presence is a comfort, a sign that even in the deep of night, the city is being guarded. You exchange a quiet nod as you pass, a silent acknowledgement between two people awake in a sleeping world. You are aware of the Roman fear of the night, the belief that restless spirits, the lemures, might wander the dark streets. It is an obscure but pervasive superstition, the reason many doorways have protective symbols carved into them, charms meant to ward off not just daytime intruders but nocturnal malevolence as well. You pass by the public fountain you drank from this morning. It is silent now, the water having been shut off for the night to conserve the supply, the basin dark and still under the starlight. You finally arrive at your own home. A quiet knock is answered by a sleepy slave who unbars the heavy door and lets you in. You step across the threshold, leaving the night behind, and re-enter the deep, familiar peace of your own atrium. The house is completely still. A single lamp has been left burning in the lararium, its tiny flame a small, constant prayer to the household gods who watch over you while you sleep. You walk to the center of the atrium and stand by the edge of the impluvium. The moon is now perfectly framed by the compluvium above, its pale light shimmering on the surface of the water in the pool below. It is a moment of perfect, profound peace. You look up past the roof, at the vast, dark sky, and there, just beyond the edge of the city, you see it. It is a massive, dark shape, blotting out a swath of stars, a familiar and unchanging part of the landscape. It is just a mountain, a green and fertile giant that has watched over this city for as long as anyone can remember. The people who live on its slopes grow the finest grapes for the region's wine. It is a silent, benevolent neighbor. You feel a deep sense of contentment, of belonging. It has been a full, good day, and now the city sleeps, safe and sound, under the quiet watch of the stars and the great, silent mountain. The day is now complete, its symphony of sounds and sights now fading into a gentle, quiet memory. The bustling forum, the echoes of the amphitheater, the warmth of the baths, and the lively conversation of the dinner party all drift away, like ripples in a calm pool, spreading out until they disappear into the stillness of the night. You are back in your cubiculum, the small, safe, windowless room where your journey began. The heavy wool curtain is drawn, shutting out the last of the moonlight from the atrium, leaving you in a comfortable, enveloping darkness. The cool night air carries no sounds now, only a profound and peaceful silence that invites you to let go. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to see. The story is told, and the city is asleep. You can feel the gentle weight of your own body, the softness of the mattress beneath you, and the slow, steady, and effortless rhythm of your own breath. Each breath is an anchor, holding you in this place of perfect calm and security. You can feel the last of your thoughts begin to slow down, stretching out, becoming softer and less defined, like clouds drifting slowly across a vast empty sky. There is only rest now, a deep and restorative peace that sinks into your muscles and quiets your mind. Let the darkness be a soft blanket, a safe harbor where you can drift without a care, knowing you are completely secure. The journey is over, and now there is only the peaceful, gentle voyage into your own sweet dreams. The end, sweet dreams.